Hi there, and welcome to another Midweek Memo. We were reminded this last Sunday of a famous television series that most of us will probably have looked at some point, The Chosen. And that title, The Chosen, we take it for granted often, but it is a really interesting idea, and actually one that not a few Christians have stumbled over. Are we really chosen? How are we chosen, and why? I think we find it difficult, particularly in our culture, because choice, particularly our choice, is such an important way in which we evaluate our own freedom and our own flourishing. What we aim for is to be people who can choose, and the greater the amount of choice that we have, the more strong and the more flourishing we imagine our lives are. So it comes as a surprise when Jesus says, "You did not choose me, I chose you." Hang on, Jesus, I thought I chose for you. I thought I decided. I thought I opened the door. And of course, from our perspective, that is exactly how responding to Jesus feels. But he seems to say, no, first of all, I chose you. And when we look at the bigger picture of the scriptures, like in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 7, we see that this is the reality all the way through. It is God who first chooses his people before they choose him. When the Israelites were camping out on the east side of the Jordan, about to cross the promised land, God said to them, "The Lord did not set his affection on you and choose you because you were more numerous than other people, for you were the fewest of all peoples. But it was because the Lord loved you and kept the oath he swore to your ancestors, that he brought you out with a mighty hand." In other words, it wasn't anything particularly special about you, Israel, that made the Lord chose you. It was just because he loves you. Now, what sense are we to make of this? Well, it seems when we step back and look at the whole picture in the Bible, this is how God loves to operate. He loves to choose the unlikely. He deliberately chose a tiny nation, an insignificant nation, to accomplish his purposes, so that there would be no doubt that it was him who had done it. In the New Testament, in 1 Corinthians, Paul says something very similar. He says, God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. The Lord loves to pick the unlikely because it glorifies him. And not just because he just wants praise for himself, he just wants people to talk him up, but because he's a good God and he loves to pour out his blessing where it is needed. But of course that leads us to one more question. Why the nation of Israel? Why that nation specifically? What about all the other nations? Why couldn't he have picked those? And for that, you just need to go back a tiny bit further to remember what promise he actually made in the first place. He's talking here about his promise to Abraham, and he said he would bless Abraham, and critically, through Abraham, he would bless all the nations. So God's choice of the people of Israel back then is actually his choice to bless all people through Jesus, ultimately. And we as Christians know that with a clarity that supersedes far what those original Israelite listeners of Moses would ever have been able to imagine. So where does that leave us? Well, first of all, it's humbling, isn't it? It is humbling to think that ultimately our future is the result of God's choice, not our own. Whatever decision we make towards him, it's only because he has first drawn our hearts towards him. It's humbling. But second of all, there's a great relief. There's the relief of grace to recognize we don't get God's favor because there's something special about us. We get it just because we get it, because it comes from him who loves to keep his promises. A couple of notices to share with you. First of all, the ladies' breakfast. That's coming up this Saturday from 8:30 a.m. till 10 a.m. We'd love to see you here in the centre at Emmanuel to come and enjoy a great breakfast, and also a brilliant speaker, Ellie Cushing, is coming to reflect on some really challenging moments of her life, challenges with mental health and God's faithfulness through it. It'll be a great occasion for those who've been Christians for a long time and others who are still looking into it. Do sign up on the website for that. The second thing to share with you is our volunteer tea. That is happening this Sunday, the day after, at 3 p.m. here in the centre. We've got a huge army of volunteers that keep us on the road in this church, and we appreciate you so much. And we'd love to express that as a ministry team by having you join us so we can serve you with tea and scones and various other bits and bobs, and then we can enjoy together and look back on all that the Lord has enabled us to do together. Finally, it is the week of the appointment of a new archbishop, and I didn't want this midweek memo to go by without me saying something about that. Dame Sarah Mullally has been appointed as the next Archbishop of Canterbury. She comes at a challenging time both for the UK Church of England and Anglicanism worldwide. But I think it'd be great for us to be praying for her as she takes up that role. And perhaps these words of her own, that she gave in her opening speeches would be a great pattern for that. She said, "I want very simply to encourage the church to continue to grow in confidence in the gospel, to speak of the love that we find in Jesus, and for it to shape our actions." That'd be a great prayer to be answered for her ministry and indeed for all of us. Do pray for her, and do come and join us at our regular monthly prayer meeting, Prayer at the Centre, this evening at 8 p.m. It's on Zoom. The link will go out with this email or in the notices from last Friday. Thanks for joining us.